So welcome everybody to a great session about a podcasting software called Anchor. Now, thank you, Yasmeen, for joining us from New York. And it is in the afternoon there now at the moment, I believe. Yeah. What time is it?
Yeah, it's 5:05.
Five, yeah. So Yasmeen Coaxum is an adjunct faculty at the English Language Institute of Long Island, University Brooklyn campus. And she is the American language, sorry, let me start that again. Yasmeen Coaxum is adjunct faculty at the English Language Institute of Long Island University Brooklyn campus and the American Language Program at Columbia University. She holds an MA in Applied Linguistics and Language Acquisition from the University of Barcelona. She has taught ELL in national and international contexts for more than 12 years in Japan, Turkey, Germany, Spain, and in the US. Yasmeen will tell us a little bit more about a podcasting software, and I'm so grateful that she's joining us. Thank you very much. Over to you without further ado, Yasmeen.
Okay, sure. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. All right. So welcome everybody to my presentation using online flipped learning to facilitate student-produced
apologies. Can I just ask you to start screen sharing again and do one particular thing for me?
Okay.
One more time, because when you started, you have the option of sharing sound and optimizing video for.
Yeah, I did that.
Yeah. Take the optimized video, check mark out.
Take it out.
Yes,
okay,
because
so,
it creates little black squares on our screen of the interface.
Oh, so optimize for video clip, take that out. Okay.
Take it out, yeah. Sure. Sometimes it happens, and yeah. Okay, thank you.
All right. Huh. Okay, so there is
yeah, and it's without the black squares.
Fabulous. That's an awesome trick. I didn't know that actually is how you really eliminate the black square. Okay. All right. So yes, welcome again. Okay, to my presentation titled Using Online Flipped Learning to Facilitate Student-Produced Podcasts. So again, I'm Yasmeen Coaxum, and I'm adjunct faculty at Long Island University in their intensive English program. And as the title of this presentation indicates, the aim is actually to illustrate how to get you to use the synchronous online flipped learning approach to get your students to actually produce podcast episodes. All right, so first we're going to actually take a little listen to my student Kiran as she talks about her hobby of painting. So I'm going to give you a little bit of a task as you're listening to this podcast, and I would like you to see if you can figure out what the British English term is that she uses in the beginning of this episode.
Hello everyone, this is Kiran and I'm the host of today's episode in which I'm going to explain about my favorite hobby, which is painting. When I get some spare time and I feel bored, I really enjoy it, as well as I'll explain the reason to choose painting as a hobby. I'm really keen on painting because I think it's good to spend time doing something completely different. I pursued my hobby of painting not only in my house, but also at my school time. I developed my interest in painting when I was a kid, and I also participated in several painting competitions in my school.
Okay, so Let's see. Do we have like a little answer here in the chat? Yeah, we don't have any. we don't have an answer in the chat yet, but I'm going to ask you guys. So did you manage to hear the British English expression? Did anyone happen to hear it? No? Okay.
I'm sorry, I must have missed it. Sorry.
Okay. All right. Yes. So it was keen on. Okay. So she said she was keen on painting. Okay. All right. So as I said, this presentation is actually combining the synchronous online flipped learning approach, yes, developed by Helene Marshall and otherwise known as Sofla. And so this is what I have used to assist me in facilitating my podcasting project in the class. All right, so let's talk a little bit now about how this project came about. So this actually originated as an in-person class experiment in my grammar class. So I was using the voice memo app on my iPhone in order to record conversations from students directly after we'd practiced a grammar point. And I wanted to see if they would be able to use that grammar point after we'd practiced. Now, as things shifted to all online during the pandemic, I still wanted accessibility to these recorded interactions. And so this is actually when I discovered a super user-friendly app. So has anyone heard of Anchor.fm? Okay, I don't know, maybe we're having some responses in the chat. Okay, no. All right. Okay, some of you
Martin
have
is saying no.
some
He
people
is
have
saying
said
no. And
yeah.
Ian says loves using it. And Manny says no.
Yeah, and then Helena says with her student, she loves using it with her students. Okay, excellent, great. I would love to hear about how you are using it with your students after this. Okay, all right. So now exactly how does this work? Okay, so for those of you who are not familiar with Anchor.fm, we are going to just take a look at how easy it actually is to use this app.
Hello everyone, and welcome to this brief tutorial on how to use Anchor FM to record your podcast. So first you go to the App Store in order to get the free app. And I already have it here, so let's take a look. This is the front page showing my different episodes here. But let's go ahead and go to Tools, because this is where all the magic happens. So when I hit Tools, we can see a variety of the different features for this app. So we have voice messages, which is where your listeners can record any responses to your content. And then we have music from Spotify, which you can use to jazz up your podcast episodes. And then we have Record, which is where all the magic happens. And here you can invite friends to join. I'm going to go ahead and show you how to do that so that students can collaborate by recording together from a distance, which is the whole purpose of this, yes? So when I do this, the audio will go out for a moment, but I would like to show you how it works. Okay, so as you could see there were a variety of ways that you could invite somebody to participate in your recording, and the other person doesn't necessarily have to have Anchor in order to participate. They can just click on the link and they are automatically invited to record. Now let's take a look at the library. Very important because it's where all of the audio that you record is stored. And the magic here is these three little buttons where you can trim and start and end points. You can edit your audio. You could splice it up, things like that. You can add background music, rename the segment, all of those things. So to just briefly take a look at the trim audio option, you could say, oh, let's start this here. Let's end this here. Okay, so that's just a brief look at that. And then if you don't want to use Spotify, you can use their cute little interlude music here. For your background, or you can use some sounds to transition between your segments. Okay, so now let's go ahead and just do a brief sample of a recording. Hello, everyone, and welcome to Yasmeen's Grammar Class Podcast. All right, now you want to add some background music to that, let's say. Let's go with some nice little skyway there, and we save it, and we can name it Test, or whatever you'd like, test for now. You hit add this recording to episode, and I'm gonna say not yet because I don't really want to publish this, but if I did want to publish it, I would hit the publish button there. I can enter the title, episode, description, season, episode number, etc. Okay, so I hope that this has given you a nice idea of how to use this app.
Okay, so of course, we've seen a little bit about how this app actually works, but now let's go ahead and take a look at how I implemented this tech in the classroom. So as I mentioned, it started off as an experiment in my grammar class, but I thought it would be absolutely perfect for my advanced conversation and listening class in the 14-week IEP. So who were the students? Well, basically we had a small group and they ranged in age from 25 to 32, and they were from the following countries. So we have Kazakhstan, we have India, and we have Uzbekistan. Okay, so this was the class profile. All right, so the idea really was to facilitate this course by having students listen to podcasts, then analyze those podcasts, and then create written conversations using vocabulary from the podcasts, and of course, ultimately recording their very own podcast episodes. So as you can see, really podcasts were the primary teaching tool for this particular course. So keeping this in mind, I wondered exactly how I could really deliver these lessons with this great podcasting tool. And so after a little bit of research, I decided that flipped learning would actually be the best way to go about doing this. And so why flipped learning? Well, at this time, the students were already studying at home, and using the flipped model would really give them time to listen repeatedly, to take notes, to digest the content at their own pace. And then this would, of course, lend itself to more time for interaction during the online session. Now, this, of course, doing work prior to coming to the class, especially with listening, it really takes the pressure off when the students are trying to understand the listening material. So why Sofla? Now, I just so happened to be able to attend a really great presentation by Helene Marshall. And I thought that Sofla was a very clear method with very practical steps for an interactive student experience online, and that it most closely mimicked having that in-person class experience. So now I'm going to take you through the 8 steps of Sofla to how I actually structured my podcasting class. So the first step is pre-work. So in this case, I had my students listen to the podcast and then simply summarize it on our Padlet. I didn't really give them information on how to summarize a podcast during their first time. And then later on, right after I saw their summaries, I explained to them that I basically look for three things in these summaries, which is who is speaking, what are they speaking about, and then what is the outcome of this conversation. So they definitely learned how to kind of just pick out the important points in terms of their listening with these podcasts. Then the next step that was implemented was the sign-in activity. Now here, this gets started basically before the teacher comes into the class, and it gives students a chance to answer some personalized questions about the podcast that they listen to, such as maybe what were the most difficult points to understand. And this lets me know not only who is attending the class because they're signing in with their name, but also who has really paid attention to the pre-work, who has really done the pre-work, which is really key when you're doing flipped learning. So after this, we did the whole group application, which really allows you to see how the students have completely interpreted the pre-work, if there are any gaps, if there's anything that really needs to be discussed further. And so in this case, since this is a conversation and listening class, we conducted some student-led discussions using some prompts about the week's topic and some conversational phrases to maintain the flow. For the breakout activity, since my classes were twice a week, Monday and Wednesday, Monday, the students would actually in groups define specific vocabulary from the podcast episodes. And on Wednesday, they would then create conversations using vocabulary from those podcasts, from the podcast. And then we moved on to the share out. If it were a Monday, then they would share the definitions while some clarification of this vocabulary was facilitated. And then on Wednesday, they would actually perform their conversations for some feedback. So that's it. Is it? Okay, is the lesson completely finished? Well, the lesson for that day is actually finished, but we're now going to focus on what's happening next, right? So we don't want the students to leave without giving them a little bit of a taste of what's going to come in terms of the class content and also the assignments they're going to have to do. So here we call this preview and discovery. And so I had the students answer lead-in questions about the next podcast topic in order to spark interest in the material. And they would listen to 1 minute of the next podcast and kind of forecast some outcomes of the conversation. And in addition, if needed, I would pre-teach some vocabulary. Now, after that, we had the assignment instructions. This is, of course, very important because we don't want students to say, oh, I wasn't really sure what to do, so I didn't really do anything. I didn't know. Okay, so this is our perfect opportunity to explain to them exactly what they need to do next. And in this case, it was either to record their podcast on this topic using our Anchor FM account, or to listen to the next podcast episode and of course summarize on the Padlet so the cycle continued. All right, so finally they have a chance, this is step 8, they have a chance to reflect on the day's lesson. And so they answer some specific reflection questions on our Padlet, and they talk about what resonated with them the most in some cases. So I would like to take a moment now to actually share the Padlet with you. Okay, so if you could just kind of see the types of activities, the types of things that we did here. So we have the pre-work here. Okay, I'm kind of waiting a little bit for some of these, would like some of these pictures to load. I think I might already have something with there we go. Okay, so just to show you what it looks like in terms of one of the reflections. Okay, I think I have one that's already loaded here. So yeah, there we go. Okay, so you can see here how I have posted various podcast episodes here on the Padlet for them to listen to. And they've been participating very well with this. This is where I recorded the instruction video for Anchor in a couple of steps for them to watch. And then we have a reflection. So in this case, the reflection was write one sentence about the best part of class today. All right, so let's go on. So you have actually seen the cycle here. So now we're going to dive just a little bit into each of, not each of, but just some of the steps. All right, so let's look at some of the pre-work. So basically we had 12 in the 14 weeks. We had 12 podcast episodes that we focused on in terms of the listening. And these were the 4 topics of these podcasts. So each topic was covered by 3 podcasts. 2 were ESL podcasts. And then there was 1 from a native speaker, right? So, and these are some of the examples here of the different podcasts from 4 native speakers that were used in this course. Now, you might be wondering, so then what happened with the other 2 weeks, right? So one of the weeks I actually shared a podcast from the New York Times, a few podcasts from the New York Times Learning Network from a few native speaking high school students in order for my students to get a clear idea of the types of projects and things that they could do for their final project. And then, of course, in the last week, they showcased their final podcast projects. All right, so let's turn to just a little example of a breakout activity. So this is a written conversation sample on the topic of the US attracting fewer international students. Now, this conversation takes place here between 3 students that are indicated in a different color each. And let's take a look at the content a little bit. So remember that the task was to create a written conversation based on some of the vocabulary from that week's episode. So we had a vocabulary like luring back, bring a lot to the table, pay full freight. So as you can see here, they did a pretty good job of really integrating in the bold these different vocabulary expressions. Okay, so now we've talked about the cycle and a couple of the steps. So now let's take a look at assessments. So I definitely built an assessment into these 8 steps of Sofla. And I'm wondering now if anybody can perhaps guess what the assessment was. Any guesses of what the assessment possibly could have been in this conversation and listening podcast class? Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and tell you that, of course, it's a podcast. It was a podcast recording. So we're going to take a listen to one of my other students, Zulhamor, as she discusses what attracted her to study in the US. So she is going to be talking about this same topic. All right, so what I'm going to do is actually, since this one started a little bit later in the episode, I'm just going to pull it up from here. Okay. All right. So of course, I'm going to give you a task this time around once more. When you are listening to this episode, please see if you can remember at least one of the things that attracted Zulhamor to study in the US. Here we go.
Hey there, Conversational Listening Class podcast listeners. I'm so happy that you're joining me here today. I'm Zulhamor and I will talk about what attracted me to come study in the US and the difference from being educated in my country. There are 2 things that attract me to come and study here. Firstly, US degrees have an excellent international reputation. Secondly, American universities offer a flexible academic environment. Unlike my country, the US degrees have an excellent international reputation. With their always changing and evolving education, these universities continue to attract students from all over the world.
Okay. All right. So we are back to the quiz again. Okay. So did anybody pick up, or does anybody remember what she said about what attracted her to the US, want to study in the US? One thing she said?
It's the attractiveness. Boy, my listening skills at this now, honestly, at the end of a 14-hour conference day, this is really terrible. Has anybody else picked it up? I'm trying to, the attractiveness or American universities, something.
Okay, so the main thing that she mentioned, we have something in the chat. Let's see.
Oh, Martin says, can we listen one more time?
You
Yes,
want
please.
again? Wow, I feel like you're like my students. Wait, let's hear this again, please. Okay, so yeah, you can listen again. Okay, we'll start
Sweet, thank you.
let's see. Okay, so we're gonna try to move it along to, okay, here we go.
Hey there, Conversational Listening Class podcast listeners. I'm so happy that you're joining me here today. I'm Zulkomor, and I will talk about what attracted me to come study in the US and the difference from being educated in my country. There are two things that attract me to come and study here. Firstly, US degrees have an excellent international reputation. Secondly, American universities offer a flexible academic environment. Unlike my country, the US degrees have an excellent international reputation. With their always changing and evolving education, these universities continue to attract students from all over the world.
Okay, I see some answers in the chat. Let's take a look at this. Okay. Excellent international reputation, flexible academic environment. Okay, American University. Okay, all right. Okay, very good. So you guys did much better on the second time around. All right, very nice. Okay, so in addition to this assessment where they actually record a podcast, we also had a vocabulary retention test. So let's take a look at some results from this test, just so that we can gauge the academic outcomes of this project. Okay, so students were asked to type up to 20 of the 150 words expressions, phrasal verbs, or idioms that they remembered from the semester. They were also asked to think of an additional 15 words, expressions, etc., and then create a conversation using them. So the median score on this test, which actually I came up with the idea for this particular type of vocabulary retention exam from a forum on ResearchGate. Okay, so looking at the scores, 73.8 as a median, lowest was 49, highest was actually 100%. So there's quite a bit of vocabulary retention there, and ability to then use the expressions in a conversation. Now, aside from the scores, the most interesting thing about this was really the role that incidental learning played, because some of the expressions that the students remembered were not from our lists. Our vocabulary list. So then where did these expressions come from? Well, basically they were some words from the titles of the podcast and some other vocabulary from the episode that was not necessarily on the list. Some vocabulary that was just mentioned during the course of conversation as a result of the topic. And so I think this really speaks to how how incidental learning can really affect be effective in this particular case when we analyze and we discuss these podcasts on a weekly basis. All right. So now we've seen pretty much everything. We've taken a look at the tool. We've seen how I've implemented it in the class. And we've looked at some assessments. So now, what do the students think about this, right? Because as educators, we also want to understand how this is really impacting the students. And so in order to do that, I facilitated a questionnaire as well as some student interviews. And I was lucky enough to have a colleague of mine from Japan who took her time to interview my students. All right, so first we're going to start with just some of the results from the questionnaire. So as you can see here, all of the students agreed, the majority of them strongly, that they enjoyed using podcasts to study English conversation and listening. Now, in terms of the English skills that they think they were able to improve by recording these podcasts, half of them thought it improved their speaking confidence. And then the other half had a split between improving the pronunciation and the vocabulary use. Now, in terms of the method that they thought was most effective in helping them to remember the new vocabulary, it was a split between doing these recordings using the vocabulary terms every week and between using Quizlet, which is something that I also used in order to reinforce the vocabulary in this course. And finally, we can see here that almost all of them always did the pre-work, which again is the linchpin when we're dealing with a flipped learning situation. All right, so now let's just quickly talk a little bit about the comments from the interviews. Okay, so first, as we discussed, Sofla has 8 steps. I wanted to know which lesson or which part of the lesson they enjoyed the most and why. And so one of them says, I like all of them because every exercise has their unique way to get the information that we have to learn. And then another one says, by recording our podcast, I think I can correct my pronunciation and use the vocabulary we have already learned in class. And then while we are listening to native speakers podcasts, I think we can hear the natural English and it can help us while we are speaking. We can impersonate them, which I think is fantastic, impersonating the native speakers. Okay, and then finally, I wanted to really understand whether flipped learning, whether doing it, whether delivering the course in this fashion actually had any effect on the students. So I asked them if listening to this podcast kind of as pre-work before our actual live Zoom sessions actually helped, right? So then they said, well, when you do your work before class, you can think about it, you're comfortable, and also you can listen again and again. And then it's helpful because working by your own is the best thing for students to learn a language. After that, in class, we can correct ourselves. And then finally, this student really gets the importance of the flipped learning approach because she said, I thought it's the most important thing and it's helpful for understanding the full class. All right, so finally, before I go, I wanted to gift you with a few resources that you can use if you're really interested in either continuing or trying to structure a course with Sofla or with really doing different podcasting projects in your class. So I put together a site, it's a Google site of all of my students' final podcasts, so you can see what that's like. In addition, there's a conversation and listening class sample lesson, some podcast planning sheets, which is what my students use for their final projects, but which of course could be used throughout for their weekly podcast to help them plan. And then just a sample of what I did with the New York Times Learning Network in terms of the breakout session and how that was facilitated. You can use this QR code here. if that is, if that should work well. Okay. But I also will provide the link here to these resources for everybody. Okay. So thank you so much. If anyone wants to talk shop about podcasting, you can email me. You want to learn a little bit more about Sofla, there is a Facebook page. I am also part of Helene Marshall's team on the website. So you could find out a little bit more about me, a little bit more about Sofla on the website here. And LinkedIn is actually the social media that I'm the most active on. So you could also contact me there. Okay, so thank you so much. I'm going to stop the share now and see if there are any questions or comments here. Okay, great. I'm really glad that you enjoyed that, Helena and Heike and Amini. So I don't know. I mean, I think I ran a little bit over the time. We started a little bit later, but I don't know if we have time for questions, but if so, I would love to welcome any questions on this or comments, anything that you would like to share.
I would have a question because I've got sort of the software itself, the Anchor
Yes.
open. Is the grouping people in a class situation, like you said, your students, they recorded a podcast, and then did you create groups in Anchor, or?
Oh, no. So this is
learning management system, I was wondering.
Okay,
No.
So basically, I created a class account. So when you go on to Anchor, you can just create, you're free to create as many accounts as you want, actually, on Anchor. So I created an account and then gave them the appropriate passwords to it so that everybody would be able to enter into that account, and that's where they would record their podcast so that I could be able to see who has recorded the podcast. And you could see that in the library section of the app. So
Okay.
yes, and so
That's amazing that this is possible in Anchor, isn't it?
It's great. It's really great. And so, yes, so when you go into the tools, as I mentioned, you have the library folder in the tools, and that is where you can see all of the recordings. And then what I would do, so, maybe going forward, I might make this kind of more of where the students have their own accounts and they basically facilitate this more. The way that I structured it was so that I had a lot of control over what was happening. So when they recorded in the library, I took their episodes and put them all together to create an episode, right? So when you put
can
something
do this in the app.
yes, so when you put something into the library, when you record it into the library, you can click on add this to episode, right?
Okay.
And then so you can just keep clicking on those little segments, add to episode, add to episode. Okay, bye-bye, Amini. Nice to see you again. Okay. Yes, so you can just say add to episode, and that's basically what I did was add all of their, and sometimes I would ask one of the students to record an intro or an outro for the week's episode. And so that's why when I said I was going to go directly to the desktop app in order to show you Zulhamor's, it's because her podcast was a little further into the entire episode. So I hope that I hope that makes sense.
Do you remember, was it Vocaroo or something? Do you remember that there was like a possibility of having conversation threads? Is that also possible in Anchor, I wonder? Say that one student says something and that there can be a reply to it by another student, and they can have basically a threaded discussion in voice form.
Now I do know that Anchor has something called voice messages. So that is the very first tab. I could go back here just because I know it was a little bit fast, but I'm just going to share briefly again to see when we're looking at the Let me
The
stop this.
interface, yeah, that would
Yeah,
really
exactly. Yeah, because
interest me, the features of Anchor as such. And
okay, so yeah, and I think the video's here. Yeah, okay. So looking at this again, right? So we're looking here. Well, I'm waiting for it to. Okay, so at the bottom here, this is what I was talking about with the library. Okay, so I'll just.
okay.
Oh no, what happened with that? Yeah. Okay, so this is what I meant in terms of the library, and you can see the outro, the intro I've recorded, and where you see that plus sign there, that's when it's like, okay, you can add this to an episode.
Okay.
All right, and so, but in terms of, and I think if I just, let me just play the beginning part briefly.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to this brief tutorial on how to use Anchor FM to record your podcast. So first you go to the App Store in order to get the free app. And I already have it here, so let's take a look. This is the front page showing my different episodes here. But let's go ahead and go to Tools, because this is where all the magic happens. So when I hit Tools, we can see a variety of the different features for this app. So we have voice messages, which is where your listeners can record any responses to your content. And then we have music from Spotify, which you can use.
Now, so I'm not, I mean, the listeners can record responses, so students can record responses, but I don't know about this thread situation quite that you're talking about there. Okay.
Question is, have some of your students also decided to publish their podcast on Spotify?
Actually, it automatically goes to Spotify. Like once you do something on Anchor, it automatically is also published to Spotify. The only one I think that you still have to request is like Apple Podcasts or something. There's one where you have to actually put in a request to Anchor to ask them to add yours there, but it automatically publishes to a few of the other platforms, and Spotify is one of them because they purchased Anchor. So yeah.
Is that, I mean, for sometimes privacy issues, perhaps not that desirable, right?
Well, I mean, I don't think the students really are thinking, because they figure who's going to like look and suddenly find this podcast out of all the podcasts out there, so they don't seem to necessarily be concerned that this is actually, out there. I think maybe for that reason, they probably don't think anyone's going to stumble upon it or anything like that. But yes, it is definitely published. It is definitely out there in case someone does happen to stumble upon it. So, yeah.
And the other thing that interests me greatly is how did you create this presentation of yours with that beautiful little avatar that looks like you?
The Bitmojis.
The
I love them.
slides.
Oh, you like the slides? That's great. Yeah.
Awesome.
The Bitmoji. I got into that craze during the pandemic, just when it was time to teach online, and I wanted something that was visually appealing. And so there's a lot of, on YouTube, there's a lot of like Bitmoji craze, people that are like into this craze, and, they have so many different aspects of the classroom that you can actually add onto a Google slide. Like if you, for example, well, once you, develop your Bitmoji, so that's an app that you can use, the Bitmoji app, to create your everything, including facial lines. They have
really?
Yes. You want to look older, you can create some little lines. You can, do your cheeks, your eyebrows, your everything, the shape of your face. Okay,
I've
so
not seen that before. Honestly, it's brilliant.
Yeah. So
Elena mentioned Bitmoji earlier, and I was wondering what it is.
Yeah. I
So
created
funny.
one for Helene as well, because we did this presentation together for TESOL, for the TESOL convention, and she wanted one so badly. So I I created a really cute one of her as
Yeah, I
well.
saw one of
Really
hers that looks so spitting image of hers, you know,
Yeah.
and it's so the same as yours, you know. It looks so brilliant. And
Thank you.
the stage itself was just a
Ah,
particular design or something that you
okay.
picked
So
up or
no.
what? No?
So actually, when you go into Google Slides and you want to create, you basically go to background and then you say like transparent. So that's really the trick with this whole Bitmoji scene, is kind of entering things that are transparent. So when you go to search for your images, you would say like transparent floor to wall, or transparent
So
transparent rug.
even that
or-
stage thing is from Bitmoji, not only the
not Bit,
characters.
hold on, let me so we can look exactly at what you're talking about. No, the stage thing, yeah, so this is
I like
created
this.
just in Google,
Brilliant.
just in
Brilliant.
Google Slides. Yeah, so if I come out of here, like when you're in these slides here and you go to background, and you maybe want to choose some kind of image. I'm trying to remember how I did this. Yes, okay. And so then you go to Google image search and you type transparent, like, I don't know, wall or something. Transparent wall. I think I did wall to floor or something like that. And then, yeah, there we go. So it brings up all types of backgrounds that you can place into your slides. I tend to use, like, that's the stage I think I have, or maybe the darker one. Okay, so that's how you can get those backgrounds there. They have, yeah, really
Beautiful.
creative ones that you can, kind of.
So that's a Google Slides thing now.
Yes,
It's not
exactly.
Bitmoji. The
No,
Bitmoji is,
The Bitmoji is
the
just me.
characters.
Yeah, it's just
Yeah,
me with my
that's
different expressions and things like that. Yeah.
beautiful, beautiful. Oh, thank you so much, Yasmeen. It's been
Sure.
beautifully inspiring. I didn't realize how closely you're working on Sofla,
Yes.
Sofla, sorry,
Yes,
American
yes.
pronunciation, and how well you beautifully structure that flipped learning model as a
Thank you.
you know, fantastic. My hats for this achievement. Fantastic, really.
I was really curious about Helene, Helena. Is that how you say her? Helena says she did podcasts with Anchor. I'm curious, Helena, did you?
Yeah, that's
did you
right.
tell us? Yeah, tell
Hi,
us what you did.
Yasmeen.
Hi.
Yeah, my students really love it, and I had presented how useful it is in last year's immersive storytelling in virtual worlds for EVO. And I think that it helps them mostly overcome their shyness, especially, and insecurity, because they are foreign language learners. They're not second language learners.
Yes.
And they love actually hiding the podcasts on Anchor FM. And I think what they also enjoy most is that other students actually listen to the podcasts in order to produce something. We do this mainly as part of the 7 principles of transmedia storytelling for spreadability purposes, subjectivity, to help them improve their performance, to motivate them. It's a very nice way in which to immerse them in technology, really. And we always combine it with virtual worlds.
And do you actually create, I mean, you or Helena or Yasmeen, have you created a podcast yourself?
Yes, I am.
I haven't.
I started this, I started this actually after I started my own. So I discovered Anchor, and because a friend of mine was doing her own podcast for her own brand. She's an educator also, but she teaches health, wellness, this type of thing, nutrition, this type of thing at Lehman College. And so Yeah, so she was using this, and this is kind of how I discovered it. And then we did a podcast together called the Empowerment Session. We unfortunately we only did it for like two, maybe three, was it 2 seasons or so? We wanted to continue, but things just got, crazy when everything started opening and we didn't have like as much time. But yeah, so we did 2 seasons of the Empowerment Session. And now I am doing a podcast for NICE TESOL, for New York State TESOL. Since I'm the conference chair for this year's conference, I am every month, because we were quite busy in the beginning of the year, so maybe we'll have more frequent episodes, but for now it is every month. I am interviewing an educator who is doing work within our theme, which is what is our theme? Which is shifting teaching paradigms, examining inclusive dynamic practices. So I'm getting, people that have kind of a fresh take on their teaching and how to really make the students feel included, et cetera. So far we have had some really great guests. We have 3 episodes. 4, is it 4 now? Because January, February, so there's 3 or 4 at this point, episodes, because once per month. And we have another one that's going to be published this coming Monday. So it's usually the first Monday of the month. Yes.
So how would I find you or your podcasts?
We can link, we can invite each other, I think, and we can
on LinkedIn. I can actually, let me go to
or share. There is an RSS feed supposedly, and
I'm gonna go to the conference website that I created on Wix, and on this conference website, let me just send it to you. There's a little icon. Let me send the link to you here. There's a little icon.
Would I find you under Yasmeen Coaxum?
Yes, you could find anything under that, because I don't try
so
to.
Unique, yeah, that name, isn't it?
Yeah, I don't try to do anything special with the names. It makes just my name. So, but I put the conference link in the chat, and at the bottom it says like there's a little podcast icon, and you guys can easily listen to that podcast there. And then the empowerment session, I think, yeah, but that was that was my first foray. So yeah.
Would that be ENGL-455, Yasmeen? No.
What is ENGL?
ENGL, which is English, I thought.
For what?
ENGL-455. That's what Anchor shows me when I search your name, but
really,
it's wrong.
I don't think I don't know any 455 anything. Yeah.
Okay.
That's. But if you, I think if you just go to empowerment session, maybe you could find it that way. If that's the one that you're looking for. I haven't even tried to find myself on here. So.
Is that Dishing with Yasmeen Coaxum? Is that yours?
Yeah, that's actually my friend's. I was a guest on her podcast.
Okay.
You probably
that's interesting.
Yeah, that's
fantastic.
But then we also had one, we also had one together.
Hey, the dog listening. Episode 1 in August 21, I found some.
And I found the empowerment session.
Yes, I did as well. That's it. I'll take a screenshot.
Oh, you did find it. Let's see. You found it? Okay. Oh, yes. There we go. With our crazy, yes. Yeah, that's what, yeah. That was like a New Year's Eve picture that we threw up there. We were like, okay, let's get, yeah. So anyway, okay. Cool.
The empowerment system.
But yeah, that was again my first effort, and I feel like, yeah, I've improved since then. So take that one with a grain of salt when you listen to it. But yeah, so still trying to improve my skills in terms of being a podcaster and someone who actually interviews people.
And are you also on, what is it, Clubhouse?
Oh yeah, I am on Clubhouse. Are you guys on Clubhouse too?
I am, yeah.
Not myself.
Okay. Yeah, I like to, I frequently visit the Miracle Morning Room because I'm a Miracle Morning practitioner. So I frequently visit them. They know me there. I sometimes speak in that room. So yeah.
Cool. Thank you. Thank you ever so much, Yasmeen. This is wonderful.
Fantastic.
What we learned from you this
I
evening.
just want to mention
Thank
one
you.
thing.
Yes, Martin, I was like, is he going to say anything? Like he's been so silent.
Yeah, no, it's very curious. The only time I heard about, not heard about, but I attended classes of podcast was from exchange students from the USA that came to my university and on 2019, 2019. She came from Chicago and she was exchange student. Is that correct?
Okay.
Came to my university and she gave us classes from of podcast.
Oh, that's fantastic.
Yeah, that was the only time I attended classes from of podcast. So
Okay, so but this was more to learn
coincidence.
to learn how to do a really great podcast. Is that was the focus of the class?
We had to create podcast, but
Okay.
we didn't have enough time. she has to leave back to the USA.
Okay.
Oh,
And where are you located, Martin? Because I didn't know. Where are you located?
me in Argentina.
Oh,
Rio Cuarto. Yeah.
okay. And Helena
So,
or Helena? Is it
Central Helena. Yeah, most
Helena.
people call me Helena. I'm in central Greece, actually, near the
Wow.
coastline. Yeah.
Wow.
Come and see us then.
Wow.
Come visit. You're my guest.
Oh
I know
boy.
it's far. New
Oh
York
boy.
and Greece.
No,
is
no, no.
far.
I know. I love, as you could see, I've taught all over. So
Yeah.
I have some friends still in Europe, but I haven't been to Greece. And then Heike, you're in
Do
Belgium.
you actually speak some Japanese?
少し日本語を話します。
私は日本語は大丈夫です。全
Oh,
然ペラペラです。
so hers is better. Hers. 私は英語の先生です。So, so no Japanese. Yeah. Yeah, but
Perfect.
that's great. Oh my goodness, Heike. Yeah, you make me feel bad.
This
'cause
is
my Japanese-
beautiful,
long ago.
international. Woo! The
Imagine how we are
empowerment
feeling.
group.
I'm from the country of the mate.
Yeah.
The country of what?
Mate.
Okay.
But,
Oh yeah,
Mate.
yeah, that's right. That's right. Everybody was talking about that. Yeah.
Yeah, and you thought he was smoking, right?
I
Not
try
smoking.
not to, get into what other people are. Whatever they do that makes them happy, that's quite fine. That's quite fine. Yeah.
So funny. Thank you, everyone. I'm going to conclude this session now with
fantastic.
Stop the
Thank you,
recording.
Yasmeen.
No, thank you, everybody.
What an
Thank
inspiration.
you.
Beautiful.
Bye-bye.
Take care.